So I'm watching old school pro wrestling shows so that you don't have to. And in today's episode, we're looking at Starrcade 83, a Flair for the gold. Starrcade 83 was the first of the very iconic Starrcade pay-per-views, and this show took place from the Greensboro Coliseum in North Carolina on the 24th of November, 1983. The match card featured 8 matches, with the main event being Ric Flair taking on the champion Harley Race for the NWA World Heavyweight Championship. So without further ado, let's get into the show. So the very first match of the night was a tag team match between Bugsy McGraw, Rufus R. Jones, and they took on the Assassins with Assassin 1 and Assassin 2. I'll be honest, I don't know much about Bugsy McGraw or Rufus R. Jones. I've seen the Assassins around. It's normally a different rendition of whoever is Assassin 2, but Assassin 1 is normally the same guy. So judging from the onset, it looks like McGraw is just an absolute powerhouse of a wrestler, but he's not good in the head. He seems very eccentric, if that makes sense. Powerhouse, eccentric wrestler is how I described him. I'm not quite sure if that's true. I'm sure we'll find out in other shows if he's on any other shows that we do. But Rufus R. Jones seems like he's more interested in dancing than wrestling. So I don't know what's going on with this babyface team here. They are dancing around. They are moving around. I know this is the early 80s, but what is happening? Like, are you guys not serious? If I was back then, I probably would have wanted the Assassins to win. Who are these guys dancing in a wrestling ring? But that's not the point here. So McGraw and Rufus R. Jones dominate most of the match, which was a little bit odd, considering no heat could be built onto the baby faces, which I think is the perfect tag team formula, which I think you guys have started to learn what I like and what I dislike, and what I would like from matches, and what I prefer not to have. And I prefer to have the good old-fashioned tag team match where you build heat on the good guys, and the good guys have to try and fight their way out of it, and they get that hot tag, and that hot tag just sets the room alight, and they go back and forth. It doesn't mean the babyface team has to win, but I just think that is the perfect formula. But they didn't quite follow that, because they did the complete opposite. After very, very short heat onto Rufus R. Jones, McGraw gets the hot tag, and he does a little bit of a comeback. But it didn't really mean much of anything. The crowd was still hot for this. Don't know if it was because it was the first match of the night. Maybe these two baby faces are really over, but the crowd was super hot for this, which was quite surprising, if I'm being honest. I suppose the match did its job then, if the crowd were into this. The Assassins to into the finish, because honestly, this was a quick match. Not much happened. Bit of action back and forth. But then onto the finish, we get a blind tag by the Assassins, as I think Rufus or McGraw runs the ropes. Blind tag, roll up by the tagged in person. He gets the win on McGraw. 1, 2, 3. The Assassins take the win, and we start off with a heelish win. So I guess the babyfaces got the crowd going. The heels still got the win at the end of the day. Look, there was nothing to really sink your teeth into this match. Nothing. Like I said, the babyfaces were more interested in dancing than winning. I don't know if these guys should be taken seriously or not, but I couldn't take them serious. This was an easy skip for me. Easy skip. I gave the match 1.25 stars, guys. 1.25 stars. Really, really low match. Not much more I can say. Not much more I can say. We then get introduced to our commentary team for the night, because I didn't mention in the very start, we just cut straight to that match. No introduction, nothing. They were in the ring, announcers were going, match gets going. Now we get introduced to our commentary team for the night, which is Bob Caudle and Gordon Solie, the iconic Gordon Solie. I've heard that name countless times. Bob Caudle, I haven't heard much of him, but I hope to learn more about him in the guys. If this mic is, it's the first time I'm wearing this mic, so if you do see me fiddling with it, I'm trying to get used to it. Hopefully it's better content for you. Hopefully it gives me a bit more freedom, allows me to do some other content, which we'll get into in the future. But yeah, anyway, Bob Caudle, Gordon Solie, they standing in front of a poster that looks like it's made by a 5-year-old. No, I'm serious. Just look at this poster, guys. Looks like a 5-year-old made it. Anyway, that was that. We then get introduced to Tony Schiavone, the one that's on AEW right now, the one that commentated Nitro for a very long time. Very young looking to Tony Schiavone, and he's told us that he's going to be back and forth between the locker rooms all night, basically just getting a behind the scenes, first time ever look into the locker room, and talk to the wrestlers before and after their matches. So that was pretty interesting. So that's a little bit of the admin work for the night. The second match on the night was Kevin Sullivan and Mark Lewin taking on Johnny Weaver and Scott McGee. Now, a little bit of backstory to this match. As far as I know, I couldn't find much on this. As far as I know, Kevin Sullivan somehow brainwashed Mark Lewin. I hope somebody's in the comments that can clear this up for me. It's brainwashed him, mind controlled him, something along those lines. Now, they don't show too much of this or even hint at this really during the NWA or the Starrcade event, because I do think this is from another territory, a story running in another territory. And I don't know why. Maybe they thought it was a bit silly, so they didn't really promote that storyline in here. But that is why they are teaming up. Just putting it out there. So to start off the match, I wrote down Kevin Sullivan and Scott McGhee excite me the most in this match. And I know they're on two separate teams, but they did look like the two that would do something in the future. And obviously we know Kevin Sullivan did a lot in his future, you know. Lewin and Sullivan dominate and get most of the heat on Scott McGhee. So they started off heat on Scott McGhee. Typical heels getting heat on the babyface, which I liked. Weaver then finally gets the hot tag after McGhee does a dive, but that doesn't last very long, so not much of a hot tag there. While the ref was distracted though, Gary Hart at ringside along with Sullivan, so Gary Hart was the manager of Sullivan and Mark Lewin, held Weaver while Lewin dropped a knee from the top rope. So he dropped the knee onto the arm of onto the arm of Weaver and then got the pin. If you saw that in 2024, you'd think, how did that end Weaver's night? You wouldn't know. But this is 1983, and we need to keep that mindset that things are different. So he got the 3 count, got the win. There was decent back and forth action throughout the match. Good signs of good workers. Typical tag team psychology. Not much more you can ask for. Honestly, not much more. With that being said, we gave the match 2 stars. So it was clearly better than the first match, but still fairly average, maybe slightly below average. Still got to sink our teeth into something real serious. And I think that real serious thing is coming up next as we get Abdullah the Butcher taking on Carlos Cologne. And just to preference this match was apparently banned in Puerto Rico for this time period. It was probably unbanned because these guys wrestled so many times. But it was banned right now from ever happening in Puerto Rico, and that is why it's happening here at Starrcade. And I wrote going into this, I am excited for this hard-hitting bloodbath. Did we get that? Not really. Not really. This was very underwhelming. So the ref gets taken out accidentally. So after fighting back, Cologne gets Abdullah bleeding. So it started off with Abdullah taking on Cologne and taking Cologne to the mat and blooding him up and using some sort of object. But then Cologne got the fight back using an object of his own, as far as I can remember, and took out Abdullah and got him bleeding. Both men bleeding, but it didn't really feel violent, if that makes sense. I don't know. Something about it was just not right. Anyway, the ref gets taken out accidentally, which leads to Carlos Cologne. Then after the ref gets taken out, he locks in a figure 4. But Abdullah's manager, Savanovic, comes in and hits Carlos Cologne with an object, allowing Abdullah to get the win. So the ref gets back up, makes the count. Underwhelming finish as well, quick match as well. It felt like the finish came too early, but also felt unnecessary. The finish felt very unnecessary. They were using foreign objects behind the ref's back the whole match. So the manager coming in and using another object felt like a hat on a hat. It really did. This match did not feel like it was banned in other countries. Like, I expected much more. This match was banned. Surely we should have got a bit more out of that. But not the match I was hoping for whatsoever. Short, weak finish, underwhelming. 1.5 stars. 1.5 stars. Only because it was a bit more serious than Bugsy McGraw doing his dances and all of that. 1.5 stars could have been much better. We then throughout the night have more interviews, but I'm not going to go into that because it's typical pre-match interviews. I'm going to go out there, I'm going to do my thing. Or it's typical post-match interviews. I went out there, I did my thing, or I lost, or he cheated. We're not going to get too much into that unless it plays into a story, which throughout the show, spoiler alert, it doesn't. Then we get Randy Orton and Dick Slater taking on Mark Youngblood and Wahoo McDaniel. Now, this was a much more serious match, and I already felt that in the opening moments of the match. Straight in from the start, I could see this is a wrestling match that the promoters and the bookers actually care about at this point. So Youngblood eats up a lot of the offense from Bob Orton and Dick Slater. He's taking all the heat, being the younger guy. Bob Orton is such a fantastic heel in this match, by the way. His heel work is just excellent, and you can see where Randy Orton gets his heel work from. You can really see it. It's from his father, like it's straight in his blood, in his genes. It makes perfect sense. So every time Youngblood gains momentum and tries to go for the hot tag, the heels just stop him with their heel tricks, just shut him down every single time, which I absolutely love because it builds up that moment of finally getting the hot tag. The one disappointing part is Youngblood missed the hot tag, so Orton had to almost timed his hot tag. So Orton kind of had to push him into Wahoo McDaniel. Looked a little bit dodgy. Maybe he's a bit green at this point. I don't know, but that was kind of disappointing because for me it took me out of the hot tag, but it certainly didn't take it out for the crowd. Certainly didn't. So after a bit of action from Wahoo McDaniel, a little bit of back and forth, Bob Orton finally lands a superplex on Youngblood from the top rope, and he gets the win for his team. Post match, Slater and Orton aren't done, and they take out Wahoo McDaniel, and they go to the outside and they look to drop an arm onto Wahoo McDaniel's arm. So drop an elbow, drop an arm onto his arm from the top rope to the outside. Dick Slater goes up and he's like, "Nah, I'm not doing this." So Bob Orton calls him down. He goes up. He does it. I don't know what happened there. Maybe Dick Slater just got really scared when he got up there. But he goes up to the top, lands on Wahoo McDaniel and takes him out. This is all post-match. This was a much better match. A much, much better match. Good tag team psychology. Good work. I gave it 3 stars, guys. 3 stars. This is the first serious match on the card. This was the first legitimate match on the card. And it deserved the 3 stars, in my opinion. So we then go back and forth. We had a Dusty Rhodes interview. Couldn't really hear what he was saying. Lots of audio issues. So that was quite disappointing. But we then had our first championship match of the night. And it was for the NWA Television Championship, which was held by the great Kabuki as he was taking on Charlie Brown. Look, Charlie Brown is apparently Johnny Valiant. Apparently, if you put a mask on, nobody knows who you are anymore, except for the heel who knows and is trying to tell everyone, but nobody's listening to him. This might be the weirdest combination of wrestlers I've ever seen. I don't know what the Great Kabuki was. I don't know what Charlie Brown was. I don't know. This became the battle of the sleeper hold versus the Iron Claw. So Charlie Brown was using the sleeper hold while the Kabuki was using the Iron Claw. I don't know, can you call it the Iron Claw if it's not the Von Erich's doing it? He was using a claw. This match just went on far too long. And you know what? It started real hot. It started real exciting and then just went downhill from there and got boring. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know what to make of it. But anyway, we moved on. The finish was basically Charlie Brown dodging a move in the corner from the Kabuki, like a splash or something. And then Kabuki goes down, Charlie Brown goes up, lands an elbow drop, 1, 2, 3, gets the win. New champion. Very boring match, very little action. I would have thought it would end in the sleeper hold finally. Who would have thought? You do sleeper holds and iron claws all match and it ends in an elbow drop. Sometimes wrestling makes no sense, but this was, this was not great. This might have been the worst match of the night. The most boring match of the night. I gave it 1 star, guys. 1 star for this match. It was horrendous. I feel like even going lower than 1 star, but I'm not going to. So boring. So the crowd was hot for it. The crowd loved Charlie Brown. Probably because I know it's Jimmy Valiant, but the crowd loved him. This could be a fact, or this could be the fact that 1983 is a bit too far from 2024, if that makes sense. Like maybe this is 1 step too far for me. But I'm trying to put myself in that mindset. And you'll see later on, I do recognize good matches. And as you saw with Bob Orton, I recognized good matches. Speaking of good matches, we now move on to one of the greatest classic matches of all time. Could we say that? We moved on to Roddy Piper taking on Greg Valentine in a dog collar match. Now, before going into this match, I already heard that this was a classic. I think CM Punk has mentioned it. Other wrestling YouTubers have mentioned it. It's definitely something that has been spoken about in the past, especially being, I think, one of the first dog collar matches. Now, Going into this match, as far as I understand, Roddy Piper had an ear injury. I don't know if it was inflicted by Greg Valentine, but he had this injury, and of course, that was then targeted by Greg the Hammer Valentine. So the match starts off very hesitant, more like a tug of war type thing between the dog collar, which you'd understand. I mean, you've got this dog collar around you, and you've got this guy across the ring from you, and he's also attached to his dog collar, and now you got to fight. You don't know where to start. This is not a normal match. You don't have your strategy in place. You haven't done this 1,000 times before, so the hesitant start makes perfect sense. Judging by both men's characters, this match was perfectly set up for Roddy Piper. And Greg Valentine often gets the stroke that he's boring, that he has no charisma. But I like Greg Valentine. I don't know why. I think he's a good technical wrestler, good basics, hard worker. I've always liked him. He may have been boring in the WWF at times compared to other people, but I really, really liked him. But this is Starrcade 83. This is not the WWF just yet. So I wrote, this feels like a proper fight. Both men struggling. The struggle is important. That is something often forgotten in pro wrestling. The struggle between both men to gain the upper hand. Valentine is then targeting the hurt ear of Randy, which really changed the momentum of the match. And Randy started selling almost as if his equilibrium was messed up in his ear. Because obviously Valentine used the chain, took him out on the side of the ear, and now Roddy Piper seems like he's off balance. Perfect selling, fantastic selling. Commentary team was great as they brought it up multiple times and really put emphasis into that and the idea that he is now off balance because his equilibrium is messed up. The work rate from both wrestlers needs to be commended, in my opinion, because they were non-stop for large portions of this match. There wasn't too much time for rest holds. Rest holds. I don't know what a rest. By the way, I might use the phrase rest holds because that is what people refer to them as. But I don't know what a rest hold is. It's a hold. It's not a rest hold. Anyway, that's just me being a difficult wrestling fan. And they just went non-stop at each other. Action from the very get-go. Using the chain. Felt violent. Felt aggressive. Felt like they really, really disliked each other. And that's all you can ask for. That's all you can ask for. They used the chain in multiple ways. Strangling each other. Hitting each other with it. Great stuff. So, this is the only thing that I did not enjoy from the match. And that is the finish, unfortunately. So the match finished when Piper just hit Valentine over and over and over with the chain on the head. And then wrapped the chain around his legs, lifted him up, and pinned him. Now, that could be a perfectly fine match or a perfectly fine finish in a different match. But this match was so violent that I feel like it needed a more conclusive ending, if that makes sense. It needed a bit more of he put Valentine down for the count. 1, 2, 3. Not I needed the chain to hook around his legs. He was still shaking around. He was still trying to kick out. I don't want that. I needed a more conclusive finish. So the finish kind of disappointed me. And I'll be honest, this could have been a 5-star match, guys. This could have been a 5-star match if for a slightly better finish. Honestly, I believe this was 5-star worthy, but the finish disappointed me, and therefore it's not a perfect match. It's not. And I gave it 4.75 stars. That's how close it was, guys. That is how close this was. 4.75 stars. Doesn't get any closer to a perfect match. Fantastic match. Brutal as hell. You could see there was a struggle between both men. There was a story between both men. There was fantastic selling by both men. They were creative with the way they used the dog collar. They were creative with the match in general. They weren't doing the same thing over and over. Really, really, really fantastic match that I absolutely loved. I loved this match. We then moved on to an NWA World Tag Team Champion with the champions, the Brisco brothers, which is Jack Briscoe and Jerry Briscoe, taking on Jay Youngblood and Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. And of course, like I said, for the NWA World Tag Team Championships. I wrote here in the opening moments, Ricky Steamboat already looks like a star. Just from the earlier moments of the match. For some reason, maybe it's in hindsight, he looks like a star because we know he became a star. But honestly, in the first moments, I was like, I could see it. I could see it. As they grew into to the match, the Briscoes began showing their wrestling prowess and their technical abilities, and just we know what they're about at the end of the day. They are fantastic wrestlers. We saw some insane strength from Steamboat as he lifted up Briscoe out of a lock with one arm, out of an arm lock with one arm, and then into a suplex. Honestly, I might not be doing it justice. Maybe you guys need to go and watch this match, but Ricky Steamboat, honestly, was fantastic for me. Fantastic. I loved everything from him in this match. I did write down Steamboat and Jay are so much more exciting than the Briscoes at this point, but that is partly because they are the faces and the Briscoes are the heels. Back in the day, the heels didn't do exciting things. That was not their job. Their job was not to land 450 splashes. Their job was not to get the crowd excited. Their job was to get heat, and that is what they did in this match. Honest, throughout the match, that is exactly what they did. So then after some back and forth action, some hot tags from Steamboat and Jay Youngblood, we finally got to the finish as Steamboat landed a power slam onto Briscoe and followed it up by putting Jay, his tag team, into a military press and dropping him onto Briscoe for like a splash type thing. And then they got the pinfall from that, and we have new NWA World Tag Team Champions in Jay Youngblood and Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. Side note, shortly after this, Ricky would actually retire to go and run a gym, but he'd be back shortly after, I think halfway through like 1984. So his retirement didn't last very long at all. And thankfully it didn't. I really, really, really enjoyed this match. I gave it 3.25 stars. It was great. It went long. It had decent pacing. Both teams really put their all into it. The Babyface team came out on top. They looked great. 3.25 stars, well deserved. We then moved on into the main event of the night, and that is for the NWA World Heavyweight Championship, which is currently held by Harley Race as he takes on Ric Flair in a steel cage match. And this match was presented as almost a passing of the torch moment, a potential passing of the torch moment, as Ric Flair looks to regain his second actually. He did have it earlier on, but it wasn't well received. His second world title run at this point. I think it was his second or third. But yes, this match, the show was even named after Ric Flair. A Flair for the gold. I mean, the name is there. Kind of made it obvious that Flair was going to win, but maybe that's because I know Flair's winning. you know, maybe it's just in hindsight. But I know if they definitely named the show after Cody Rhodes, I would think Cody Rhodes was winning. So put it that way. Harley Race dominated early portions of the match, using the steel cage to his advantage, of course. Both competitors actually used it very well, and to their credit, they got color from the steel cage, something you don't see often. If I ram your face into something steel and rub it on there, I'm going to think you should bleed at some point, especially those old steel cages. Maybe a new one is nice and polished and everything, not in these days. So, yeah, they got color, both men bleeding. There was a special guest referee, I forget his name here. He got involved way too much. Way, way, way too much. And this is a criticism I've seen on the internet about this match. The referee kind of made it about himself a lot of the time. Getting involved, getting handsy. And I know that was the point of him as a sort of enforcer type referee, but it got too much at times. So yeah, that was a little bit disappointing, I will be honest. Nice back and forth action. The match did get a bit repetitive, I'm not going to lie, towards the end. It felt like they were doing the same thing over and over. I don't know how many times Flair or Harley Race went for a big knee to the face, jumping knee strike to the face, and the other guy rolls over. Or a elbow drop to the floor and the other guy rolls away. I saw it a fair few times. Figure four was locked in, everything. So, a little bit disappointing in that aspect. I do think this match could have been better, but it was still very, very good. Like the technical aspect, the execution of it was still very good. But perhaps they didn't need to go that long with an aging Harley Race. Now the finish came as Flair landed a top rope crossbody into a pin. It wasn't well executed, I'm not going to lie. I don't know who the issue was here. But he got the pinfall. 1, 2, 3. We have a new NWA World Heavyweight Champion, and his name is Ric Flair. Woo! So I gave the match a 3.75 star rating. I thought it was good. I thought it was well executed, like I said, but perhaps just didn't need to go that long. Perhaps we could have had a shorter match with action, action, action. Maybe that's all we needed. With that being said, the show definitely had its ups and had a lot of downs, like a lot of downs. Obviously, we had Greg Valentine and Roddy Piper in Match of the Night. That is an all-time classic. And I think that is one of the reasons the show still stands in history, as in a show to watch. But everything else maybe was a little bit underwhelming. A lot of it good, most of it bad. Main event was all about the moments. I think that's the thing. The main event was more about the moments than the match. Think about Kofi Kingston, Daniel Bryan. Do you remember the match? Do you remember the moments? Think about Daniel Bryan winning the world titles at WrestleMania. Do you think about the match? Do you think about the moments? And I guess this was Ric Flair's passing of the torch. This is now him as the main guy. So with that being said, that was 1983 Starrcade. I hope you guys enjoyed this. And just a side note, you guys let me know, do you prefer the shorter video style or do you prefer the longer video style that we've been doing with the current day stuff? Or would you prefer a long, in-depth review of the current day stuff like we've been doing and a slightly more quicker, fast-paced action of the stuff you might not have seen from back in the day like today's episode? You guys let me know down below and we'll see you next time. Thanks for watching. Take care. Peace.